Good morning, everybody. Of Shabbos, as we go to the Chitas of today, we're holding in the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, chapter 2, verse number 31. And God said to me, that I've given before you Sichon, besides Sichon in his land, Hachel Rosh, begin to take possession of it, that you may possess his land. That says he subdued the Moedim, the guardian angels of the Amorites under the Moshe's feet. He said you can step on them, and you can tread upon their necks, because every nation has their malach, has their angel above. Sicha went out against us, who him and his whole nation. Lamachama Yahatza, they went out to war at Yahatz. Now she says he did not send for Oig to help him. This shows you that he had no need for each other's assistance. They were powerful nations. And God put him in their hands. And we conquered them, Vesbanav and his sons, Veskolam and his entire nation. Now she says, Banoi Ksiv, it's written in a singular, it's read in a plural. Is written Benoi in singular. We learned here that he had a son who was mighty as him. And we conquered all the cities based at that time. We totally, utterly destroyed every city. And men and women. We did not leave over any survivors. Now she says, Anoshim means men. Muslim, we killed the men regarding what is plundered. On Sichon, it says, Bazana, we took pillage for ourselves. For the word biza, plunder, for it's important to them, and each person took plunder for himself. But when they came to the plunder of Oig, already satiated and full with the booty of the previous of Sichon, and thus it was contemptible in their eyes. They ripped and threw it away, the animals and the clothing, taking only the silver and gold. Therefore, it says there, Bazanu Lanu, which relates to the Bizoyin, as a concept of scorn. Bazanu Lanu. We took only the cattle and the pillage for ourselves, along with the spoils of the other cities that we conquered. Verse 36, that's the edge of the river Anon, and the city that's in the gorge. Gilad, and the entire Gilad, there was not a communal city, we didn't, that was strong for us. God gave us all this land. She says, Kol Yad Nacha Yabek, all these areas are next to the Yabek River. As a Kol Hashetziva Hashem Alekeinu, and whatever God said that we shouldn't, commanded us that not conquer, that we shouldn't conquer, that we shouldn't take over, we left that alone. Chapter 3, verse number 1. We then went towards the Bashan. And then Oig Melech HaBashan came out. Oig Melech HaBashan came out after us. And his entire nation, La Melchama, to war, Edrei to Edrei. Now she says, any northwards travel is turned going up. And God said to us, Altira, don't be afraid. I said, Altira, don't be afraid of him. Because in your hands I've given to you him, I say, Veskolami and his entire nation, Vesaice and his entire land. You should do to him what you did to the Sichon, the king of Amorites, Ashiyesha Becheshvan, that's living in Cheshvan. Now she says over here, you further find the first time that Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid. By Sichon, it wasn't saying don't be afraid. It was only Moshe was afraid in the merit of Oig. Moshe afraid Oig Melech HaBashan has a merit. Oig had a merit. And what was his merit? Having helped Avram might stand for him. There was Oig Melech HaBashan did once a favor to Avram Avinu. As the scripture, the Torah tells us in the book of Genesis, that he came and told Avram Avinu that his nephew was taken captive. So Oig Melech HaBashan had one good deed. And that good deed was that he did a favor for Avram Avinu. And because of that, Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid. But the Eibush tells him, don't be afraid. And God put in our hands Oig Melech HaBashan in his entire nation. And we smote them until there didn't remain anything. Vanilka, verse number 4, Vanilka is called, we conquered all the cities. Basically, at that time, there was not a communal city, which you didn't take from them. Shishim 60 cities. All the territory of Oig, all the territory of Oig, royal's palace, the kingdom of Oig Melech HaBashan. Now she says the translation of Onkelos is Beis Plach Turchana. It's a base sword Yerushalmi, and Megillah Esther calls it Truchnin. From there I learned that Chevel Argiv means the territory of king's palaces, meaning the entire local kingdom is named after the palace. All these cities were fortified with high walls. They had double doors and bolts. This is besides the cities that were captured, of the cities of the Prizis, had many walled cities. Now she says cities spread out, open without walls, and cities like like Yerushalayim was cities around it that was settled without walls. Verse number 6: we totally destroyed them, like it was done to Sichon, the king of Cheshbon. Hachem Kohen Mason, we destroyed every city, Nashim V'Taf, men and women and children. Now she says, Hichrim Lashon Heiver, it's the present tense, all of Akalis, it was totally destroyed. Verse number 7, V'chala Behem V'shala Harim, and we scorned all the cattle and the spoils of the city, but Zaz Nolan we took for us. V'chol Behemas, we then took at that time the two cities of the Amorites, the kings of the Amorites, Asher Be'eva Yanim, was the other side of the Jordan, Menachal Arnon and Nachal Chermon, from the river of Arnon until the river of Chermon. Now she says Miyad means from their possession. Tinidim Yikru LaChermon Shirin. The Sidonians called the Mount Hermon Mount Sion, and the Amorites called it Shnir. Now she says, elsewhere it says, to Mount Sion, which is Hermon. This mountain thus has 4 names. And why is it necessary to record all of them? To tell us the praise of the land of Israel, for 4 kingdoms wish to pride themselves in this Mount Hermon. One saying it will be called on my name, another said it will be called on his name. Ultimately, it was given to Eretz Yisrael. Shinir is the snow, because on Mount Hermon you can find snow. That's where you find the snow in Israel, is Mount Hermon. Verse number 10, we took all the cities of the plains of all of Gilad and all of Bashan, until Salcha, Ve'edrei, Ori Mamlechas, Oig Melech HaBashan, the royal cities of Oig and Bashan. Verse number 11, Kedak Oig Melech HaBashan, Nisham Yasar Ephraim, only Oig Melech HaBashan was left over from the remnants of the giants. Hine Asher Eres Barzel, his bed was made a bed of iron. Alahi Barabas Binyamin, it is not the Rabbah of the Ammonites. Teisha Ames Orkev, Arba Ames Rachba Amasich, it was 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide, according to the cubit of man of Oig himself. Now she says, Yesterday, Ephraim, who Raphael and his allies killed in Ashter's Kanaim in the book of Genesis. Og escaped the war, and he survived, and he was left over from all the giants of that time. Ba'amas Ish, the cubit of Og. So Og had his own measure, because it's brought down other places. The Og of Melech HaBasha was 500 amas, which makes him over 900 feet. Verse number 12 is, and regarding the land which we took possession at that time, I gave the land of Arer, and that it was in the Arnon Gorge, the Chatzihara Gilad, and half of the mountain of Gilad, V'arav, and its cities, and Asati the Reuven, I gave it to the tribe of Reuven, V'lagodi, and to the tribe of Gad. This land mentioned above, from the Arnon brook to the Chemra mountains, we took possession at that time. This phrase is not connected to the beginning of the verse, but to the end, namely to I gave the tribes of Reuben and Gad. But regarding to full inheritance of the land, it reached until Mount Hermon. Verse 13, V'yasar Agilad, V'chol Bashan, Mamlechas Og, and the rest of Mount Gilad, and all of Bashan, of king of Og, Nosati Lechetz Shever of Nasha, I gave it to the half of the tribe of Nasha. Kol Chevel Agov L'chol Bashan, who you could add to for him. All this territory of Og, where palaces, with all the Bashan, this was called the land of Rephaim, land of giants. So Rashi says, who you could add to Rephaim, this was what I gave to Avram Avinu already in times of Abraham. Verse 14, Yair ben Menashe lakas kol cheva Argev. Yair ben Menashe took the entire territory of Argev, Agula, Gerushui, Vamakasi, Vayikra Yisal Shmai, and he called it his name as Bashan Chaves Yair. He called it the villages of Yair. Ad Hayem Hazeh, until today he gave them the name. He gave it the name on himself, Yair. And that completes the Chumash for today. We now go to the Tanya of the day. We're holding on the third. We start the third letter, Geras HaKodesh, the letters of the Alter Rebbe. We're going to start the third letter of the Alter Rebbe. So the Alter Rebbe starts as follows. Many of these letters of the Alter Rebbe are on the concept of tzedakah, the aspect of charity. So he says as follows. The verse says, Vayilbash tzedakah kishiroyin, and he grabbed himself with tzedakah as a coat of mail, V'koiva Yeshua b'roisha, and a helmet of salvation upon his head. This verse speaks, and the fact speaks of God's promise, actions in defense of his people. That the Eibishter will clothe us like with an iron jacket, protect us with a coat of armor. Nevertheless, the deeds of Jews that mirror God's deeds serves as the vessel which can receive, or as a means in which can bring about God's reciprocal action. Hence, when Jews act in a righteous and charitable manner, in the spirit of term of tzedakah, such conduct attracts and calls forth the divine activity on their behalf. In particular, a Jew's divine service that resembles God's own act of tzedakah contains within it the protective coat of mails, because his body and his helmet of salvation for his head. So that's the pasuk. The pasuk is talking about the way God protects the Jews, and also talking about the way a Jew affects that God should protect us, and that's by him doing acts of charity. Our sages of blessed memory explain this verse. Just like you take a chain of mail that the soldiers, an army man would wear those days, that was his protection. Not a bulletproof vest, but those days he used to wear the armored plates, small little plates. We take all the individual scales add up and form a large coat of mail. So you take each and every one individual thing, you put it together, you have a jacket. Av tzedakah, so too tzedakah. Kol pruto mitzarefes lecheshbon gadol. Doesn't mean different that you give a penny every day. Ultimately, all these pennies add up to a big amount. Alter Rebbe now anticipation of a question: what gained by this analogy? Surely it's just as obvious that all individual coins given to charity add up to a great amount. You don't have to have Shlomo Melech to tell us this. So it's all as it is that all individual scales add up to form a larger male. So why do we need to have Shlomo Melech to give us this analogy and to explain us the importance of every penny that we give, that it turns into a big amount? Pirush, this means this individual additional point being made here, just as a male is made of scales, covering gaps. And they protect, and they protect. If you're missing one little nail, now the army man, who the soldier, who's trying to protect himself, if you're missing one little metal piece of metal, so then it can come the arrow can come through that. But and so too the acts of tzedakah, it protects the gapes, meaning it will presently be explained the spiritual dynamic of charity comprises of two things. Number one, an element that corresponds to chinks in a coat of mail, and number two, an element that corresponds to protective scales, the coins that cover gaps. So the Alter Rebbe is going to go into this whole concept, not mail that you get in them. I think it's called a garment that they used to wear with those scales, an army garment, and those things are called mail. I'm not sure exactly the chinks, the different words to it. The meaning is as follows: charity is greater than all commandments. For the performance produce garments for the soul. The performance of commandments provide the garments that enable the soul to withstand the intense degree of divine revelation that'll expose to the God. So it's like a protective garment. The garments that they used to wear for war was these heavy metal jackets. I don't know what they call it today. And then they used to wear these, and it was made up of many scales of metal. So ultimately protected him. So too, the analogy to the neshama, that these every mitzvah is like creates a protection for you. What are you being protected from? You're being protected from the Eir Havaya, from the infinite light of God. And this infinite light of God, every one of us wants to receive. So we need a garment through which the light of God can come and give us what we need. These garments are drawn forth from the infinite light of the blessed Ein Sof. So their own source, deriving from the source which is infinite, they enable the soul to cope with the infinite degree of revelation which is encountered in Gan Eden. Why? Because this garment comes from Sefer Kol Alman. Unlike the mode of life-giving divine illumination called Mamalik Kol Alman that fills the world, which becomes integrated and manifests within the creatures it animates, the mode of divine illumination called Sefer Kol Alman, encompassing all worlds, is not limited to the finite spiritual capacity of created beings. It transcends and affects them from afar, so to speak. As we know, the explanation of Mamalik Kalalmin, Vesevu Kalalmin, these two expressions in Kabbalah, Mamalik Kalam, the way God fills the world, Sevu Kalam, the way God surrounds the world. This I've explained already in Likutei Emorim in the beginning of Tanya, the first 53 chapters of Tanya. Ayin Sham, you should look there. So we need to bring about the revelation of a Malakam, the way God comes in with the world, and the way we need also the energy of Sevu Kalamim. The way God is, so to say, the energy of God is a force that surrounds the world, encompasses the world. But Sarus Latata, we accomplish that through the awakening of below. So these garments are brought into being by the arousal from below. What means the arousal from below? He mitzvah. That is a mitzvah. So the mitzvah arouses, becomes the garment to the soul, and it gives the capability for this arousal to bring down elevation from above. V'ratzon elyon baruch hu, meaning the fulfillment of the commands of God and the will of His supreme being. So since the commandment emanates from God's supreme will and from the level of Sevu Kalalman, because it comes from the Ratzon of the Eibishter, the will of God, so that's why they serve and as the source of the above mentioned garments. They become garments so that we'll be able to protect us, to be able to receive the light of God. So to be able to have an enjoyment, as the expression says, basking in God's light. How does our neshama bask in God's light and not be affected? Is because of these garments. So these garments protect us. That's the Alter Rebbe is explaining the meaning of the verse. And the essence of this influx, this light, who comes from the infinite light of God, is this Ein Sof, is the garment and encompassing light of the 10 spheres. Atzilus, in the world of Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah, the 4 spiritual worlds. Which evolves from cause to cause and from rung to rung. Hanikra b'shem Malak Alaman, which in Kabbalah is referred to Malik Alaman, Ila ve'ala, cause and effect, level to level. When you say level to level, automatically you mean the way the light, the encompassing light comes in the world. Because in the concept of Sefer Kalam, the aspect of the way the Eibishter, God's light is above the world, there's no up and down. So the Alter Rebbe now answers the following question: since the spheres themselves are divinity of the 4 worlds, why do they need the infinite light as a garment? So the Alter Rebbe, what do you need it for? They are themselves divine. Pirush ki oidein say baruch hu mislavish me b'ser kol hishtalshelus es spheres datzilus b'yisir. Who matzil es spheres. I'm sorry. This means that the Ein Sof, the Ein Sof, the infinite light of God, vests itself and radiates in the indwelling manner within the entire evolving chain of the 10 spheres of the world. B'ri yitzir asir. V'hu amatzil. Moreover, it gives rise to the 10 spheres. These 10 spheres, Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferes, the 10 spheres, the Atzilus, in the world of Atzilus, the world of emanation, Amishtalsus, which comes down, evolves into the world of Bria, the world of creation, Yitzirah, the world of formation, and ultimately in the world of action, Asiyah. So the spheres of Atzilus does serve as a divine illumination for the world of Bria, Yitzirah, Asiyah. And how is all this made? How all this happens in Kabbalah? This all made possible by the tzimtzum otzum avur Beitz Chaim, by the means of this main, massive, immense contraction, tzimtzum, which is explained in Eitz Chaim and Kabbalah. So this contraction involves not only a quantitative lessening of the spiritual illumination, but more importantly, a qualitative diminution. And the infinite light is contracted to so great of a degree that it can emanate and illuminate in a finite manner. And this is all in a nutshell, which meets a lot of great interpretation. This is all the concept of Seder Shtalshlus, the way the Eibishter comes into the world. From Oir HaSoiviv, from the infinite light of God, to Oir HaMamale, to the way this light ultimately fills and penetrates the world. So this is called Venikra Oir Pnimi, and this is now called an inner light. So the resultant light is referred to indwelling, Oir Pnimi, a light that is vested itself in an inward manner, Oir Pnimi, within a created beings, and so much as it is contracted to match the spiritual capacity of the particular created being in which it's closed. By Deyakim HaMitzvahs, now by fulfillment of a commandment, when a Jew does a commandment, Nimshach, not only an Oir Pnimi, Nimshach Oir Makiv, comes from the Ratzon of God. So it brings about the revelation of an Oir Makiv, an encompassing light. Haniskeler, so what happens is, when a Jew does a mitzvah, not only does he have an Oir Pnimi, he brings within this Oir Pnimi an Oir Makiv. He brings within it a infinite light, a light that's above any Pnimi. But it comes within the Pnimi. It comes within the inner aspect. So the encompassing light is elicited and radiates within the 10 spheres of Atzilus B'Nitzia, thereby uniting with the Oir Pnimi, with the inner light. So when this occurs, the infinite and transcending light, the Makiv, permeates the indwelling light, the Pnimi, of Seder Shtalshlus, the scent of these lights, the self-obscuring and chain-like descent of the divine life force through which increasingly material worlds come into being. And that's the way, it's a very deep concept, the way the two things come together, the Oir Pnimi and the Oir Makiv. There's also a Shem Elokim and Shem Havaya. He's saying the Shema. Shem Elokeinu is the Shem Yudke Vavke, is the Oir Makiv. Elokeinu, Oir Pnimi, Hashem Echad, they all come together as one. Because through our Shema, our hearing and our contemplation and meditation, ultimately our action, we bring about the unity of the upper and the lower. We bring about a unity of Oir HaSoviv, of the infinite light with the finite light. V'nikra in Kabbalah, this is called Yichud Kudsha B'Richu, the unification of the Holy One, blessed be He, which God, how do we express infinity? In the Torah, it's called Kodesh. Yichud Kudsha B'Richu, blessed be He. Kodesh signifies separation from the world. Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. That's how he says, Kedoshim tiyu ki Kodesh ani, be holy because I'm holy. Holiness means separation. Above, something that is above you is holy. Hence the level of Soivu Kolalim, the concept the way godliness is above, beyond the worlds. Ushchinte, and the way God comes, way godliness comes Shechina. So the Shechina is the indwelling light, which is also so called the divine presence. Descends and dwells Sheichen. That's why the Mishkan, the Beis Hamikdash, is called the Mishkan, because it comes from the word Shechina, within the created worlds, as explained elsewhere. So explained in other contexts that the performance of a mitzvah results in this union of the Holy One, blessed be He, with His Shechina, This is why it says, why we say l'shem yichud, for the sake of the union of the Holy One, blessed be, and the Shechina, before we insert the mitzvahs. That's why sometimes you'll hear people will say, before saying a mitzvah, before saying the blessing of the mitzvah, they say l'shem yichud kutsha b'richu shchinte. We're doing this for the sake of the unity of kutsha b'richu, the way God is separate seva kolama, the way God's above the world, ushchinte, where the way godliness comes within the world. And this is the concept of the fuse or the light of seva kolamim, known as the Holy One, blessed be, with the light of a Malach kolamim, known as the Shechina. Thus, the main radiant divine light drawn down through the performance of commandments is reflected within the evolution of the spheres of the four worlds. And from the reflection of the reflection of the above mentioned encompassing light that is kalel they tzumim rav by means of power contraction nasa levush lebechinas nefesh. So when a Jew does a mitzvah, this light that is an encompassing light comes down as a protective, comes as the garment, is made. That's the garment that you create. So you create a garment from Oir HaSovev, from this infinite light, and this garment, the Bechinas Nefesh, Shuruch Neshana, Shel Adam Gan Eden Atach Devayin, it becomes the garment of the soul that he uses in the lower level of Gan Eden, and ultimately even the higher level of Gan Eden. Why do you need a garment? This garment is there that you'll be able to derive pleasure and attain some apprehension. And safer of an illumination of the infinite light of God, as explained elsewhere. So, for unaided, the finite soul would never be able to apprehend this infinite radiance. And therefore, it's important that you do as many Torah mitzvahs today. So, Mir Hashem, you'll have a greater enjoyment in the light of God when that will reveal to you when the Gan Eden or Mashiach comes. Now you understand the statement of our sages, Pikiyovas. And it says, Schar mitzvah b'hai amalekah. In this world, there's no reward, there's no real reward for the fulfillment of mitzvah. They do not say that in this world there's no reward granted. Rather, there exists no reward in this world. Real reward is not in this world, because this world is limited. So how can we reward you for the mitzvah? What can we give you in a limited world? Something that you have done in an unlimited, you've created unlimited things. So how is it possible for a limited world to reward you? In this physical world, Baal Gevul, that is in a state of limitation. It's contracted. This world is so contracted from godliness. In this world, it's impossible in this world to be able to clothe itself with the infinite light of God. It's only except by the ways of the 10 spheres, which are called Anikraim Gufa, which is called in the Zohar, they're called the body. The Alter Rebbe will soon explain that just as a body and the soul are incompatible, so too the spheres infinitely distant from the finite Ein Sof. So, as a reward for performance of commandments, one is able to draw down an infinite degree of light in this world. But this light cannot possibly descend within this world. I'm sorry, when it's said in this world, which is bounded. Thus, in this world, there's no reward for the fulfillment of the commandments. No such revelation can possibly be clothed in this world. Whatever illumination and clothe itself in the world derives merely from the level of the 10 spheres, which is Zohar terms as a body. Thus, for example, Chesed, Dari Yamina, that's why the Zohar says the Chesed, kindness, is called the supernal right arm. Gevura, severity, is called the left arm. For just as there's no comparison between the physical body and the soul, so there's no comparison at all between the 10 spheres of the world of Atzilus, to the supreme emanator, the infinite light of God. Even the highest level in these 10 sfirot in Kabbalah, in the world of Atzilus, which is Chachma, Shehid Eshisim, which is the beginning of all the 10 spheres, Hibechinas Asiyah Gufnis, is like a physical thing, Lagabi Eid and Seif, in comparison to this infinite light. So even Chachma Datzilus, which is called in Kabbalah Chachma Ilah, is nothing in comparison to Eid and Seif, which you can't even call it by name. It's called an infinity, which you can't even call a Chachma. As I explained in Lakutei Amorim. Nevertheless, after all this, the infinite light of God cannot come into Chachma Datzilus, but it comes into a mitzvah. Therefore, through the practice of tzedakah, ma'aseh tzedakah, milas chasadim, whose fruits man enjoys partially in this world, since some minute quantity of the world and fulfillment of these commandments is enjoyed within the world, it follows that a microcosm ray of this infinite light of Eira Sefer Kalam does descend into this world. How is that possible? This is possible because Yesh Nikavim, there appears, metaphorically speaking, gaps in the supernal garment. Belavush Elyon, Amakiv Kolag Alaguf, and Kalim the Yitzvidus Datzilis. There are gaps in the supernal garment in the envelope of the body, which is the vessel of the 10 spheres. Through these gaps, light and an abundance are irradiated and diffused. So therefore, from the sphere of Chesed, which is the right hand, results in longevity in this physical world. And for the left arm, Midana smaller, which is the sphere of Gevura, results in wealth and honor. And likewise with beauty. It emanates from the sphere of Teferes. And so too majesty and splendor and gladness, all the beauties of this world. So they all come through, they shine through the gaps. However, in order to prevent the forces of evil, that's the problem. The Eibishter God gives chesed to the world, and He wants to give an abundance of chesed, an unlimited amount of chesed in all levels. But we're living in a world of good and bad, and we have to be worried that not only the good are going to get, but the bad are going to get too. So how do we prevent the forces, this chesed, that comes to the world through our actions, that we want to protect, that it shouldn't be given also to the forces of evil? However, in order to prevent the force of evil from drawing on high from the light of the abundance, which involves and descends netherward, as far down as this physical world, when this spiritual energy descends to such a lofty level, it's possible for Klippas and Siddhachra to derive and nurture from it as well. In order to forestall this, and likewise here below, in order to shield man and to guard him and save him from all the physical and spiritual harm which could conceivably result if the Klippa and Sitra Achra were to derive nurture from this source. Therefore, the encompassing light is reflected back and it closes the gap. So once the encompassing light has, so to speak, shone down into the world through the clink produced by man's charitable deeds, it then reflects back in order to fill the very same breach. So it becomes its protector, it becomes its giver, and it becomes its protector. This deprives the forces of evil of any possible nurture via the same venue. This, for this encompassing light, belongs to the category of the infinite light of Eira Sevev, the encompassing light as mentioned above. And this infinitely transcends the degree of light called Makif, is a source in which the forces of evil are unable to derive any substance. We thus see why tzedakah, producing its own provident gaps and its own provident protective scales, is likened to a coat of mail. Again, coat of mail is the coat that they used to wear made out of these pieces of metal.
Coat of nails. Coat of nails. Nails. It's misspelled.
What's it called? Nails?
Coat of nails. The heads of a nail, you know, like the flat heads.
What's the M over here?
I know, it's incorrect.
Oh, it's incorrect. Okay. It's incorrect. It's incorrect. Thank you for fixing this. A coat of nails. Okay. Moreover, and this what and this is what underlines the above quoted teaching of the sages. A blessed memory, just as a chain keeps on making the same mistake. Nails. All the individual scales add up to forms a large coat of nails. It doesn't make sense. So maybe I can't imagine that he makes the same mistake over and over. The English. So to the charity, all the individual coin add up to a great amount. The word "great" is used specifically. Daika. Steph is the cheshbon gov daika. Because in the spirit of the verse, it says, "Great is Havaya, and exceedingly glorified. Beli, Seif, V'tachlis, V'gvul." And that's why it says, because our small move in this world, our penny, is a cheshbon gadol above in the spiritual sense. It creates an unlimited response. Thus, by the means of coins given to charity, one draws down the spiritual light of the level denoted by the great Havaya. It's a level of Sefer Kol Alman. The 4 letters of the divine name alludes to the 10 Sfiras. For the letters Yud represents the level of Chachma. The first letter Hey represents Bina. Vav represents the 6 Midas, the spiritual emotion. The final A represents Malchus. So these Sfiras sustain by the Ein Sof and partake in its infinite greatness. Wow. Now that completes the Tanya for today. My dear friends, today is the 7th day of the month, 7th day of Menachem Av. Tillim of the day is chapter 39 to chapter 43. And the Rebbe writes in the Yom Yom of today that we should realize that the sacred letter, the first letter, that's this Peisim Bebracha, the first letter of this Igeres HaKodesh, was written 10 years before the letter beginning contained to the second letter, the second letter of we should realize the time of these 2 letters. Hi friends, I want to wish you all a wonderful and beautiful Shabbos. I hope you learn Chitas tomorrow by yourself. Sunday is Tisha B'Av. You're not supposed to learn Torah the first part of the day. We're going to come together at 1:30 on Sunday 1:30 p.m. We're going to learn Chitas at 1:30 p.m. on Sunday. I wish you all a wonderful and beautiful Shabbos. May it be a Shabbos that will bring the Geula, the redemption to the world. And as the Rambam writes, that when Mashiach will come, then Tisha B'Av will turn into a day of joy and happiness. Have a wonderful and beautiful Shabbos.